comes the rain and thunder now. Nowhere to run to now. I've disappeared, don't wonder how. Looking for me, I'm underground. Here comes.
Okay, so, are you ready for a story? Here we go. Imagine a world where everything is possible, a life where there are no limits, a world where everything exists, and everyone's life is a journey. This is how things used to be in the days of Gabriel the Great. He was a powerful man indeed, and such power had to be earned. And so begins the tale of King Gabriel the Great. In a kingdom far to the north lived an ordinary man, who lived an ordinary life. There was nothing of him that caused any worry, and for such a man to be king was improbable. Such a man was believed to be on this earth simply to serve the powerful. Gabriel was his name. He was named after an angel cast from the heavens to change the way of life and to bring justice to a kingdom. Of course, Gabriel knew not such things. Most men knew not of their destiny. Gabriel was born of royal blood. His grandparents disowned him, and his parents cast him out like rubbish. It was not of his parents' choosing that they did such a thing. It was orders from the King of Normdon, Gabriel's grandfather. Gabriel's mother was the princess, and his father was a thief. Their love was forbidden, and once the king heard of his daughter being with child, he had the thief murdered. Gabriel was sold as a slave, because one could not kill one's own blood. It was blasphemy. A sweet old woman named Miss Hayward purchased Gabriel and became known as Mom. A lie was never exchanged between her and her adopted son, and that made Gabriel grow strong. At the tender age of 9, he started work. His first job paid a fourth of a linnet per day, which was not enough to buy a loaf of bread. The job was hard, and he was cut no slack. He was punished severely for asking for a break. Once he turned 18, he got a new job, which paid much more. It was a job feared by everyone, hence the high pay. The job was fishing the Sea of Katoma, better known as the Sea of Blood. Legend has it that a sea serpent lived in that sea. Gabriel feared not. He could not afford to. The job paid 2,000 linets per day, which was big money. He would do almost anything for that kind of money. He fished that sea for 10 long years and caught his fair share of food. And once did not he see the serpent from which everyone spoke. He did save a small fortune. He found him retiring early and moving to the west. The king would not permit it. Gabriel was required to serve the king's army for a term of no less than 2 years. No sooner could he leave Normdon. Gabriel hated his grandfather with a fiery passion. And that is where the story picks up. Gabriel, at the young age of 28, was sent off with the army to siege war on the Elf Kingdom. King Richard had started this fiasco years ago. Technology was traded between the Elf Kingdom and Normdon. The greedy king stole the elves' secrets without a trade. He still wears the ugly scar from that encounter. The king of the elves shot an arrow into the back of King Richard's head. That put him in a coma. It took a powerful wizard and a faithful priest to bring him back. Upon his return, he waged war on the Elf Kingdom. Now, the only male next of kin, Gabriel Alexander, has to go to war with the enemy. It's all part of the master plan. All that can be heard of is a marching of human feet, the dry sand beneath soldiers' feet being packed down by thousands of marching boots. Thousands of men marched to battle, not out of loyalty to their king, but in fear of their lives. Gabriel stands among these soldiers, dressed in shiny silver armor. Each soldier looking like the one next to him, in a maze of madness which anyone could get lost in. At the front line is General Ben Justice. He is who upholds the law in Normandy. General Justice approaches a group of soldiers, each of which has his own reason to be elsewhere. We embark on a journey. The path before us leads to wealth and power. We must take that path for the survival of our race, he screams, his voice like that of death whispering in one's ear. One hand on his sword, he climbs onto a beautiful white unicorn of flawless beauty. He races off into the desert, thousands of armored soldiers all on foot. Off to the Elf Kingdom marches the armies of hell, Gabriel being in front and center. His mind had been racing all week. While everyone prepared for battle, he thought of how he refused to fight a war not of his own. However, in such a place as this, pride is not tolerated. He knew how to end his suffering for being born of half-blood. He must kill the king. Nobody would punish him for such a crime, because everyone feared the king, and everyone was subject to his rule regardless of their will. The army marches for days, with minimal rest, General Justice leading the way, stallion beneath them. Men are lost from the treacherous journey. They simply die from exhaustion. The scorching sun beams down on Gabriel and the army, causing overheating and fatigue. The heat is unbearable, but nobody dares complain for fear of the witches and wizards that accompany the army. There are 3 witches and 2 wizards among these soldiers. They all march in the front row because of their skill, and their loyal to the king is untarnishable. Gabriel contemplates the idea of killing the general and riding his unicorn away from the war and off into the sunset, into freedom. He knows better though. He would be pursued and killed for such a crime. He needed to be more strategic about his escape. His freedom would not come easy, but at a price. That last moment comes when they reach the gates of the Elf Kingdom. Elf archers line the top of the gates, and the entire elf army guards the front gates. The Elf King stands at the very front. A bow rests on his shoulder, a quiver of arrows on his back, and a sword upon his hip. General Justice stops a couple of yards from the Elf King and his army behind him, all their hands at their side, ready to unsheathe their swords upon command. The general dismounts his unicorn and starts towards the king. Everyone stands still as statues, and for a moment all is silent and seemingly peaceful as the general takes his final steps before reaching the Elf King. Gabriel watches patiently, waiting for the right moment. The king stands tall and proud at 4 feet. He has to look up at his enemy. General, I should have known your king wouldn't dare show his face. He fears me so. The Elf King stands his ground, showing not fear. Your insults matter not, for we are not here to exchange words, but blood. The general speaks with the authority of his position. The king grins. I suggest we turn back now, because our gates are impenetrable. We will only suffer defeat. The general returns the grin, simply stating, we will see about that. He turns his back on the king, and as quickly as he does so, the elf draws his sword and decapitates the general. Before his head even hits the ground, chaos erupts. Both armies charge one another. Gabriel and the rest of the army draw their swords fast as lightning. The elf archers fire arrows fast as they can to take them out. Gabriel charges along with the rest of the army, dodging arrows left and right, men falling all around him in a sea of blood and death. As both armies grow closer to collision, Gabriel sets his sight on the general's unicorn, who is unaffected by the madness surrounding him. With one incredible jump, Gabriel defies gravity. Leaping high into the air, everything seems as if it's in slow motion. He does a 180 in midair and hurls his sword with all his might. It flies gracefully through the air and hits its unsuspecting target dead in the throat. That's one less loser in King Richard's arsenal. Gabriel lands on the unicorn's back, facing his own army with shocked expressions upon all their faces.